All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, with the start of the 2022 National Football League season right around the corner, which team has what it takes to win the AFC North? I want to start off with the defending AFC North champs in the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, last year, the Bengals came out of nowhere to win the AFC, and they were within an eyelash of winning their first Super Bowl championship in franchise history, but no longer with the element of surprise. What will this Bengals team be able to do for an encore this season? Now, you look at Joe Burrow at quarterback, and he has been as good as advertised and then some. You know, some people are referencing him to Joe Cool due to the moxie that he has and he plays with. At the end of the day, it's all about the Bengals protecting Joe Burrow and keeping him healthy. I mean, he injured that knee in the Super Bowl. Of course, he had the big knee injury in his rookie season with Cincinnati. And it's just all about protecting him because when Joe Burrow goes, so do the fortunes of this Bengals team. And we've seen this offseason Cincinnati, upgrade their offensive line. You bring in La'el Collins, the former Dallas Cowboy, Alex Kappa, the former Tampa Bay Buck, and Ted Karras, the former New England Patriot up front. And you look at the skill positions with what the Bengals have assembled around Joe Burrow, and there's talent everywhere. You look at the running backs with Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon, and then you look at the wide receivers. Jamar Chase is already one of the best receivers in the NFL. I put him top three. That's how good he is. He's great. He knows how to beat one-on-one coverage. He's very physical at the line. He has great hands. And of course, after the catch, he can do some big time damage. And if you want to focus on Jamar Chase, you still have to worry about Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. So this Bengals offense under head coach Zach Taylor should once again be explosive. Now, Cincinnati, they know how to get after you with their front seven. Trey Hendrickson had 14 sacks last year. He's going to once again need to be a big part of this Bengals defense. And you look at middle linebacker Logan Wilson. At the end of the day, he's a football player's a football player. That's the best way to sum up what he does. You have strong safety Von Bell, but of course, once again, the question mark is going to be with the Bengals corners. We saw them have their struggles at times during the postseason last year, and they really rely on the front seven being able to get pressure to kind of take some of the stress off of them. And then, of course, in those tight games, it also helps Cincinnati's cause that they have one of the better kickers in the NFL and Evan McPherson. This guy can kick it forever. And then on top of that, he's very accurate as well. And that's a big thing when you can have a kicker that can consistently hit 50 plus yard field goals with accuracy, that really helps out your team because the D is going to say in a tight game, let's just get the ball back to Burrow. Then on top of that, when Cincinnati gets the ball, they're like, you know what? Let's just get it across midfield and maybe get one or two more first downs, probably one, and you're already in field goal range for McPherson. So, of course, the question is, do the Bengals have another Super Bowl run in them? And I think first and foremost, Cincinnati needs to survive the AFC North, and they need to survive their schedule as well. They open up at home versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 2, they're at Dallas. Week 5, another big one in Baltimore. Week 6 at New Orleans, and the Saints should be an improved team. Week 8 at Cleveland, and regardless of what's going on with the Browns, that's always a big game when Cincinnati and Cleveland get together. Week 11 at Pittsburgh, week 12 at Tennessee. Of course, that's the rematch from the divisional playoff round last year. Week 13, they're home versus Kansas City. And we saw this past season where both the Bengals and Chiefs engaged in two epic battles, with both of those being won by Cincinnati. Week 14, the rematch with Cleveland. Week 15 at Tampa Bay and Tom Brady. Week 17, home versus Buffalo. That could have some playoff implications right there. And then they finish at home with Baltimore. Staying obviously in this division, you look at the Baltimore Ravens, the aforementioned Ravens, and the 2021 NFL season was a rarity for them because not only did they fail to make the playoffs, but the Ravens also failed to post a winning record. Now, last year, the Ravens were unable to win the close ones as they lost 6 games by 6 points or less. Now, first and foremost, what Baltimore needs is to have a healthy Lamar Jackson. He missed 5 games last year due to injury. He was injured in some of the games that he played through, but nonetheless, the Ravens need a healthy Lamar Jackson. His go-to weapon on offense is going to be tight end Mark Andrews, but they're going to need other guys to step up, and they need to find more playmakers on that side of the ball. Also, can Lamar Jackson be more of a pocket passer? We've seen Lamar Jackson, the athlete, but for this Ravens team to take it to the next level, they're going to need him to be able to make more plays consistently from the pocket. Defensively for Baltimore, a new defensive coordinator and Mike McDonald. He's very familiar to the Harbaugh family. He was the defensive coordinator at the University of Michigan last year under John Harbaugh's brother, Jim. Now, one thing that he has to improve, Baltimore had the worst pass defense in the NFL last season, and that has to change. So you look at the Ravens, and you can't expect them to have a season like they did 2 years in a row. But they're going to have to go out there and take care of their business. And it starts on the road in week one against the New York Jets team that should be improved. Week two, they're home from Miami. And remember, this Miami team got the best of the Ravens last year in South Florida. Week three at New England. They have a contest with Buffalo in week four. Week five, they host Cincinnati, and that could be a big one early on in the regular season. Week number seven, they're home for Cleveland. And week number eight, they're at Tampa Bay. And these are just some of the games that highlight the Ravens schedule, not to mention, of course, two contests with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when the Steelers and Ravens get together, you simply throw out the rule book. And speaking of those Steelers, it's the start for a new era for the black and gold. As for the first time since 2003, Ben Roethlisberger will not be the quarterback for the Steelers as he retired last year. So what did Pittsburgh do? They used a first round pick on former Pitt Panthers quarterback Kenny Pickett, but then they also picked up veteran quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. Now, once upon a time, Trubisky was a first round pick of the Chicago Bears. And for what it's worth, people will say that it didn't work out for Trubisky there, but he did help the Bears get to the postseason twice. He spent last season as a backup quarterback with the Buffalo Bills, and now he's looking to have another opportunity to start in the NFL. Now, of course, Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin's already come out and said that Trubisky will be the starter when the season begins. And you look at what Trubisky has around him, and already, in my opinion, this is the best team that Trubisky has been on during his NFL career. So there are some opportunities there for him. The Steelers have themselves a solid offensive line. You have running back Najee Harris, who's looking to build off of a fine rookie season for Pittsburgh. And then, you look at what the Steelers have at the wide receiver position with Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. And I think Claypool can be an X factor. If he has his head screwed on straight, he has the potential to be a solid receiver this year for Pittsburgh. And then another sleeper is tight end Pat Fryermuth. But at the end of the day, just like it is always, Pittsburgh's bread and butter is on the defensive side of the ball. And you look at the studs that they have there. Cam Hayward has been an anchor on that defensive line for the Steelers for many years now. He's also a leader in the locker room, and that's big. TJ Watt is one of the better edge rushers in the NFL. And of course, he is adding to the family's legacy. You think about what his big brother JJ has done as a pass rusher in the NFL. And then you look at Terrell Edmonds and Minka Fitzpatrick. And for my money, Minka Fitzpatrick is the best safety in the NFL. You look at the ground that he could cover, his ability with his hands to make interceptions. And on top of that, what he brings as a hitter. And, having a guy like Minka Fitzpatrick in that secondary changes things. You think about what Pittsburgh had for so many years with Troy Polamalu back there in the secondary. And you think about what the Steelers have had over the years through their rich tradition as far as defensive backs, not always safety to corners as well, but you think about Brady Keys, you think about Mel Blount, Rod Woodson, Carnell Lake, of course, Troy Polamalu, and now Minka Fitzpatrick, excuse me, is adding his name to that legacy as well. So the Steelers made the playoffs last year. They were a first round exit at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs, but let's see how things work out for the Steelers here in 2022. Week number one, they're on the road against Cincinnati. They host New England in week two. They're at Cleveland in week three. They're at Buffalo in week five, which could be a big one. They host Tampa Bay in week six. In week number 16, they host the Las Vegas Raiders. Week 17, they're at Baltimore, and that is always a big one. And then week 18, they host the Cleveland Browns. And speaking of the Browns, this has been an off season to forget for them. Of course, they made the trade for Deshaun Watson and quarterback, gave up multiple picks, paid him, and now due to his off the field discrepancies, it's a situation now for the Browns where they will not have his services for the first 11 games of the season. And on top of trading for Deshaun Watson, they traded quarterback Baker Mayfield to the Carolina Panthers. And both of these scenarios have been PR nightmares for the Browns. Now they have to get back to playing football and focus on that because they still have a solid team and they have to find a way to have it all come together. Now, Jacoby Brissett, more than likely is going to be the starting quarterback for the Browns when the season begins. He's the best of the bunch when it comes to Josh Dobbs and Josh Rosen as well in that quarterback room right now. You still have two solid running backs in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and I know that Kareem Hunt is looking to get traded. But nonetheless, if they can figure this out between Chubb and Hunt, the Browns, excuse me, will have one of the better running games in the NFL. You get the former Dallas Cowboy wide receiver Amari Cooper. Now let's see how he's going to fit in to this Browns offense under Kevin Stefanski, and you have David Njoku at tight end as well. Cleveland has a solid offensive line, so make no mistake about it. So they're going to try to run the ball and try to protect Brissett or whomever is the starting quarterback until Watson gets back. You look at this defense, Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney with their ability to rush the passer and Denzel Ward in that secondary as well. But at the end of the day, it's going to be an uphill battle for the Cleveland Browns with no Deshaun Watson at quarterback. And not just that, you look at the talent in this division, and you're talking about a Bengals team that is fresh off of a Super Bowl appearance. And you also have to deal with the Ravens and the Steelers, who are perennial playoff teams. So, with that said, when you mix it all together, I think it's a long shot for the Cleveland Browns to make the playoffs this year. So, at the end of the day, I think this is going to be a very tight race throughout the season. I'm going to give the slightest of slight edges to the Cincinnati Bengals to win this division for the second year in a row. But that's not to say that all will be lost for either the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Baltimore Ravens. I think both of them are very talented teams. I really like what the Pittsburgh Steelers are putting together, and I think they'll be in the mix for a wild card, and I think the Ravens will potentially be there as well. But I think for the second year in a row, Who Dey will reign as champions of the AFC North. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.